Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
What's up, guys? It's Darren. Welcome to the Touch MBA podcast. I hope you're doing fantastic. This week, we have a guest-hosted episode by our very own Sabaina Kamara, who is a second-year MBA at Michigan Ross. She brought on her section mate, Sheela Lal, to talk about how Sheela started a company during the MBA. I hope you enjoy this episode. It's been really fun to track Sabaina's journey from applicant to now second-year student and almost MBA graduate. Really incredible. Do check out her other episodes, episode 109, where we discussed her application journey, and episode 135, where she brought on her friend Kashay Sanders, and they reflected upon their first year at Michigan Ross. And if you want to get free school selection help, like Sabaina did way back when, go head over to touchmba.com. We'd be glad to give you some pointers on how you can strengthen your profile. Also, give you an indication of your competitiveness at your target schools and point you to some potential best fit schools given your profile and goals. All that for free at touchmba.com.
This is Sabaina Kamara coming with another episode, but this time I'll be interviewing my dear friend, Sheela Lal. I'm a now second-year MBA at the Ross School of Business, so University of Michigan. And Sheela is also an MBA too, so she will be graduating with me this year as a 2019 graduate. So Sheela, if you want to just kind of give us some quick tidbits about your background, what you did before Ross, and just the wonderful person that you are in general.
Well, first, I want to give a very important shout out to Kawa Coffee in Dearborn, Michigan for coming through with the excellent Yemeni coffee and tea. I was able to stop by there on my way back to Ann Arbor from Detroit. As Sabaina said, a second-year MBA, and before Ross, I worked in international development really broadly, primarily in South Asia, and then moved back to Missouri and worked in state politics, looking at how legislation actually impacts the way we live our lives.
Why did you decide to come to Ross? Specifically, Why did you decide to come to business school?
Yeah, this is a question I always get. A lot of people assume I'd go to policy school or get an international affairs degree, which is what I thought after undergrad. But as I gained more work experience, I recognized that business school was a really good opportunity for me to gain the vernacular needed to make bigger decisions. I love policy. I love being in it. I want to be involved in it at some level when I'm done with school. And to make big moves, you have to use the language of people who currently have power. And so I was like, okay, well, this is a good reason. And then a more pressing problem was in progressive politics as a woman of color. It's really difficult to move up. And so I figured getting a degree that has clout behind it would allow me to move either up, jump up a few levels, or completely pivot out. That's kind of why business school, why Ross. Ross was actually the only school I applied to. Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't hedging my bets. I just thought, I'm applying to grad school. I want to get into the program of my choice.
Yeah.
Not just go to a school.
Yeah.
Go to get an MBA.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I decided, this was right after the Missouri primary. So it was August 2016. I was in Las Vegas for a work thing. And I'm sitting there with my friend and thought, okay, I guess I should look up business school stuff. She was like, I'm sorry, what? I was great. And I looked up the Ross, just to get a sense of it, when round one stuff was due. Mm-hmm. And I text my boss, who was a couple floors away. It's so I'm going to have to take a day off to do the GRE, because I also thought I was applying to policy school. She was like, shouldn't you be out eating sushi or something? What are you doing in Las Vegas telling me this? Right. Okay. I only was exposed to Ross through a friend from undergrad and a friend who worked with me in India, who did her actual Ross summer internship in India with at the company I was at, and realized that these two incredibly different people, and they both thrived here. I was like, okay, that shows that a diversity of personalities can do well at this school. And none of my friends from undergrad or my previous life had gone to business school. So I was really working with a really, really small data set.
Right.
And the more I looked into other schools, the more I was like, none of this really speaks to me. I don't want to be in a big city. I like college towns. I want to be at a place where like you have a lot of interaction with the people you're going to school with. And I'm a big fan of state schools. Like I went to a state school for undergrad and I like the diversity of resources available. Yeah, the more like I just read about Ross, I was like, okay, I would like to go here.
Yeah.
I felt like it spoke to me.
Well, I'm happy you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm happy you're here too.
Yeah. So kind of like a bit background about me and Sheela. So Sheela and I were both a part of the Consortium for Graduate Studies of Management. We're part of that together. And we're also a part of the same section here at Ross as well. So yeah.
We got to spend a lot of time our first year together.
Exactly. So yeah, this is my girl. Okay, so Sheela, based on your background in policy and, why you decided to go to business school and furthermore, why you decided to come to Ross, let's talk about your recruiting strategy last year.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up Consortium because there's a OP, which is the big conference that all of the members of Consortium go to. That was my first exposure to recruiting. Didn't know what it was. So I get to OP and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to jump into this and figure out what sticks. I realized that a lot of what's traditionally offered is not in my, at that point, like bubble of engagement. Not interested in marketing, not interested in supply chain, like tech or finance, like none of those like functions or industries speak to me. Yeah. But then I met a Consortium and Ross alum who was there representing CVS. It was like at a healthcare panel. And I talked to him afterwards and the entry point was asking about telemedicine.
Yeah.
This alum and I talked for a half hour because he does government affairs. And he modeled for me the ability to walk in both worlds of business and politics. And that gave me the confidence to assert what I wanted in an internship or in a career out of business school that I didn't have to do the same things that everybody else does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on campus ended and like a lot of stuff I wasn't interested in, got to off campus and recognized that the things I was interested in maintain the same like labor ethos that was really problematic in the first place of we're not going to pay people for their labor.
Right.
So when I would ask for what other MBAs would get paid, they would just like go silent. I'm like, okay, cool. So you don't want to pay me for what I'm worth.
Right.
But you want me to like make your organization better. There's like a massive disconnect there.
Right.
So I moved back home to Missouri for the summer and was in the last rounds of various interviews.
Yeah.
For just-in-time recruiting. And by the time that started, I had a couple of entrepreneurial ideas that I was working on. And so by the time I got to my last interview, I think it was pretty obvious. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. I'd rather just explore what this has to give me.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk a little bit more about like what that process felt like. Because I remember like last year, of course, like, of course, we're in a consortium together. Yeah. So by the way, Consortium, the mission of that group is basically to advance the representation of underrepresented minorities in business and management.
Yeah.
Basically, so that's what the consortium is. But other than that, like we're in consortium together, we're in the same section together, we're friends, so we're talking, and it's like it was really interesting to like get a sense of like kind of where you were at, where you were at in the process. Yeah. And I imagine you were going through like a lot of kind of emotional things or just like mental things, just thinking about like wow, like my internship strategy is so much more different from everyone else's. Exactly. It's 100% off campus, which makes things so scary. Like for me, I was recruiting for consulting. So it was easy in the sense that the firms came to me. Like they wanted, like they were on campus for us. But it's difficult when now you're the one that's kind of seeking those opportunities. So can you talk about like kind of like how you felt when you were going through that process and the resources or the connections or how you even tried to think about, okay, how do I network my way into having these conversations?
Yeah, so I didn't rely on CDO as much as a lot of people do for off-campus because my area of interest, it just isn't as robust here. And that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Christina Strong, who is also a consortium in Rosslyn, but works in CDO.
So CDO is our career development office.
Thank you. Yeah. She was just like a really good support mechanism. And she would straight up tell me like the things you're interested in, we don't have the capacity for. And it's not that we don't want to support you. It's just, it's not, if you can help us like build that out, we would love to do that with you later.
Exactly.
And so she was just a good person to have in my corner. I'll talk a little bit about how I found opportunities and then how I connected in.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is your friend. It's like exhausting as it can be. I learned that just putting policy internship may not have been like the best strategy because then it pulls up opportunities for law students and public policy students who are more underpaid.
Yeah.
And, like arbitrarily underpaid. So then I would look for corporate affairs or government affairs. And that started bringing more results up. I would also just like pitch different organizations.
Yeah.
So I came from a background that involved me pitching to media sources or pitching to other people. So I felt very comfortable with providing an ask and a why in my emails. My network is surprisingly varied, and I didn't recognize how varied it was until I got to the let's look on LinkedIn to see who knows who.
Yeah.
So for instance, there's an organization called Vote Lead Run, which does a lot of candidate, like pipeline talent management for female candidates throughout the country. And I reached out to them via a woman who I used to work for in an online medium when I was an undergrad.
Yeah.
Who knew one of the women who founded that organization.
Yeah, so a lot of connecting.
A lot of like weird connecting and like really keeping those relationships even lukewarm.
Yeah.
And so this person could vouch for me and say, hey, like she's going to, like, you should talk to her at the very least.
Right.
And like asking Vote Lead Run if they needed somebody to help build out like an like help them do ecosystem mapping or like a really manageable summer-long project to help them understand their capacity in the Midwest when they choose to expand to the Midwest.
Right.
And it didn't work out, and that's okay because that's not what they were looking for. But that pitching at like with the ask and the why helped me reframe very quickly, like, what am I looking for? And I realized that what I was really interested in is strategy and developing purpose.
Yeah.
So that is how I thought about on and off campus. And it has translated well for my full-time recruiting, where I could make my ask, I could give my reasons why. Yep. And if you weren't about it, that's cool, because it wasn't going to be a good match in the first place.
Exactly. Okay. So now you did that.
Yes.
You went through that process and boom, Drunk Shrub.
Yes.
Tell me
so
about
massive pivot.
Yeah, like, so going from looking for internships, realizing that like at the very last moment, you know what, I'm going to continue to build out this business idea that I have. So now you're like full throttle into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
For the entire summer internship program. Like, how was that? Like, where did what is Drunk Shrub?
Yes. Okay.
How did you come up with that? And let's dive into it.
Yes. So Drunk Shrub is my baby. It's a CPG company. It's a smaller company, and it is a bottled fruit, herb, and spice infused drinking vinegar concentrate that you mix with like soda water or regular water or ginger beer, and you can mix it with alcohol as well. So yeah, Sabaina's an excellent customer.
I love it.
But the idea is that if you're choosing not to drink alcohol, you should still have a beverage that makes you feel like an adult and not like a child. Like usually when you go out and you don't want something alcoholic, you're going to have like soda pop.
Yeah.
And I don't want that.
Yeah.
I came up with it after making a choice for myself that I just wanted to cut back on drinking because it wasn't making me happy. The side effects, it's not just the hangover, it's just it exacerbated my depression and anxiety the next morning. I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm losing an entire day. So I started experimenting with shrubs. I also had the support of my parents. My parents did not invest anything. It's all my savings, but they let me stay at their house.
Yeah.
They fed me, let me use the car.
Yeah.
Didn't really ask me questions, pushed back on my like business plan ideas to make it more robust.
Yeah.
And like ensure that what I'm doing is valid.
Yeah.
So very grateful for them and like that type of like support and privilege that a lot of people may not have.
Right.
So yeah, so I came up with this idea. I used a lot of what we learned in core, which I was not expecting to use.
Yeah.
To think about like, what's the viability? What's the market for this? How do I like plan out doing it? Who do I talk to? Again, like that strategy and ecosystem mapping. Recognizing that my background in policy and regulation was super helpful because I could go to this after reading like state statute on how I could legally incorporate or not incorporate. Like, is this cottage law or is it an LLC? Yeah. Who do I talk to make sure that
so
I
your
can actually build
policy
this?
Background is 100% useful with the business.
Exactly.
That's
and
awesome.
also thinking about not only who do I talk to, but what do I talk to them about? So I went to the Boone County Health Department. It was like,
good.
Yeah, walked in cold and was like, hi, I need to talk to somebody about starting a food business. And they sent me with my dude, and I knew what questions to ask, and that's purely because business school teaches you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't walk in with just not knowing. You have to have a little bit of structure to get people to pay attention to you.
Exactly.
So worked with my regulatory guy. He was super helpful. And then he pointed me in all these different directions. Took a lot of inspiration from another Ross and Consortium alums podcast, Side Hustle Pro. Nikhila Matthews has a lot of really amazing resources and models for women or like people who don't come from families with entrepreneurial or like small business expertise.
Right.
What it looks like to build your own product or build your own business. So yeah, I came up with the idea, ideated all the recipes, tested them, had my friends drink them, had my family drink them, think about like what market would take well to these. And then did all the regulatory, legal, financial work And then in August, was able to actually process my first batch before, like a week before coming back to school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. You were able to get this all going right before we came back to school.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when we came back, I think it was reorientation, and you had like a booth during like the reception area, and it was kind of like a tasting session so that you can like give the product out to like, you know, the students and like have everyone taste it. And I just remember you lining up I think there were 5 different flavors, and then you had like your soda water, all of that stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Sheila's got it. And then I tasted it and I was like, you know what? I love this product. And if anyone knows me, like I love good stuff. Like if it tastes good, like I'm 100% in.
Yeah.
So how did you get to that moment where now you're kind of working with the school to like, you know, provide an opportunity for you to showcase your product to the students? And then how did you feel when you started to receive like that positive reinforcement from your classmates, and then to the point where like we're ordering from you and, you know, things like that? Like walk me through that thought process.
Yeah. So before I even thought about incorporating, so this would have been in late May, early June, I thought, what is the point in creating another product if it's not actually good? Mm-hmm. So I hold a really high standard for how food and beverages taste anyways.
Yeah.
And when it hit, I was like, holy shit. Like, oh my God, I actually made something good.
Yeah.
And like consistently good. And the flavors themselves seem complex and seem scary, but it's really about understanding how herbs and spices and fruit and like the tanginess of vinegar can work together. Mm-hmm. And then once my friends started tasting, like, okay, this is good. Like, and I've had a lot of really bad shrubs. And so I know what can happen and what it should taste like.
Right.
I think also this practice of giving the why and the how in my ask for even recruiting really carried over to cold selling, trying to cold sell to small businesses in Colombia. But then when we got that email about reorientation, and it was like, oh, it'll be champagne. And I was like, well, there's plenty of people who don't drink. So I emailed Sujan, director of admissions, and I think it was Amy Tuckfield, who works in programming. I was like, hey, so I have this product. And I like linked my website. It's always key to have a website. I don't understand how people like create things without website in the first place.
And it's a beautiful website. Very simple, very easy to navigate, like straight to the point. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, I have this product if y'all are interested. And it was like, I was still at the sample point where I wasn't trying to like get people to pay for it. That's not the point. It was having an option for people who don't drink. And then also creating like if people wanted to try it. Yeah. And plenty of people had seen on Instagram that I've been working on this. So I think there was that interest, at least in the MBA twos.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were really amenable to me setting up. And I, honest to God, was not expecting people to be as enthusiastic about the product. I knew people would be supportive. Like all of our friends are incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
And so I knew people would be excited that I have a sign and that I'm out there. But the number of people who stop by and ask questions, like I think it was a really good experience to hear that positive feedback. And to see how people respond, because that language is really important, not just for like messaging, but to create a more complete verbal and like a visual, I guess, like to create that understanding of what it is on the website. Yeah. Everybody who tries it is like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be, but it's really good. I'm like, okay, but what is it?
Yeah,
how
exactly.
How do you feel about it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it was a good experience.
I know like at Ross, like we have like all of these resources for entrepreneurship, as far as I think they have like the Dare to Dream, they have like all of these other things. Like have you kind of thought to like maybe use some of the Ross resources to help kind of further your business for Drunk Shrub? Or have you like been able to use maybe like the advice from like, you know, people from the Zellure Institute? Yeah.
But yeah, so ZLI, I sort of used them this summer. I had a different entrepreneurial idea that I was toying around with. And so they were helpful for that. But I have really tried to utilize them for the intangibles. So advice and connections and like talking to people. I found that the funding I don't fall into the buckets of funding. So like Dare to Dream is for people who have an idea, but haven't thought it out all the way. I know one of our good friends got it, and her idea was already implementable. Right. And then there's like some financial support for people who are wanting to do this full time. Right. And so, I'm kind of in that middle bucket of like, I can't afford to do this full time because your girl needs health insurance and like a steady paycheck. Exactly. But also it's an idea that has been validated by the marketplace. Right. So like, where do I fall? That being said, primarily the women who work in ZLI are so dope. Yeah. Sarika Gupta is amazing. She's another Ross alum who works here. And and incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not as good about meeting with ZLI as I should be, but that's because like everybody's schedule's stupid hectic. And they're not just helping MBAs, but BBAs.
Yeah.
So ZLI is it's a good resource especially if you can tap into it immediately.
Right.
Take some time. There are other ways to benefit from it.
Right. Okay, so now kind of pivoting into, again, you mentioned that, your like Drunk Shrub is your baby.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your side hustle growing into like, true business, all of that great stuff. But then you also mentioned that your girl needs some income.
Yes.
She needs medical insurance. She needs all of that. And that is 100%, I guess, the entrepreneurial trade-off, right?
Yeah.
So for you now, you have exciting news about like full-time opportunities for you. So let's talk about like how now that Drunk Shrub is like, growing, it's moving in the direction that you want it to move into. And now that you have a better understanding of what you want professionally as well, right? To kind of help supplement that endeavor.
I like how full-time paycheck.
Exactly.
My small business.
Exactly. So now let's talk about, your full-time recruiting strategy. Yep. So when you came back on campus and Drunk Shrub is now like, a growing entity. So now let's talk about what you did.
Of like, do I do entrepreneurship or do I do a full-time job?
Exactly.
And for me, the immediate response is Drunk Shrub is an extension of me. So therefore it should go in the same path as me.
Absolutely.
And I don't need I want to do other things. And so I decided to look. So I came into full-time recruiting knowing that I'm going to stay in the Detroit area for personal reasons.
Yeah.
And so I was only looking at firms that had an office in Detroit. Or that would allow me to stay in Detroit.
Right.
With on-campus, I realized that the two things I was looking at were consulting and then government affairs. Very different fields.
Yeah.
Very different timelines, which works. So with consulting, my pitch and like my reason for doing consulting is I want to meet people in certain industries. I want to do a lot of work within those industries to create professional relationships that span more than just one project.
Absolutely.
I also want to be in Detroit for long enough where I feel like I'm invested in the area more than just like, I'm here for 2 years. Okay, what's next?
Exactly.
So given that, like those parameters, I had two firms that I had 3 firms I was actively engaged with, 2 of whom I had interviews with, and 1 gave me a final offer. Not bad odds.
Not at all.
And I was very much myself the entire way because it's very hard for me to mask who I am, and I'm not going to try to perform in a specific way to get somebody to like me. It's not worth it. So I have a final offer. I have an offer from Tata Consulting. They have an office in Troy, which was one of my parameters, and they really liked me. They actively sought me out, and that to me means that they want me to stay for the long term, and it matches what I want.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't gotten Tata, the route I was going to take was government affairs and looking at government affairs management for the Midwest. So how do corporations run their lobbying strategy at the state level? And then specifically, I would like to stay in the upper Midwest to help run strategy for like Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, like the entire gamut. And the reason for that being like, yes, I have a policy background, but a lot of corporations they don't have a political strategy that aligns with their business strategy. And that to me is very confusing.
No, I remember when I was told that you got Tata, I was like, I can't wait for her to tell me because like, I'm so proud of her because like, I just understood like your recruiting journey and then like the success with Drunk Shrub. And it's like, I want Sheela to keep winning. Like I want more wins. And
this is the Ross ethos. We just want people to win.
Yeah.
And I'm not used to that.
Seriously. And it's just like, you won. I was like, yes. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And like most people are like, oh, so you're going to Tata. What do they do? And I'm like, they do the entire gamut, but they're really well known for engineering and manufacturing. And that's what I'm interested in, not because I come from that, but because there's a lot of, like, they're a massive part of our economy, and it's really important to understand how manufacturing works. Yeah. That being said, they have arms like human capital and, like, finance and tech and media and entertainment. So they're everywhere. They're just not as highly visible as, like, Deloitte, Accenture, and MBB. Right. Or McKinsey, Bain, BCG. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't need to, like, I've never been in a job that's, like, that has the brand. It's like, I can do my own good work in that. Exactly. And that's what matters. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. So I'm super excited to learn what consulting is all about. Yeah. And also,
That's
like,
awesome.
is watching you this summer doing M&A work in Orlando, and just like that's a choice. I'm going to hang out in Missouri, like in my bed, like with my parents, like doing my work like up until like 2 a.m., but it's of my own volition.
Yeah.
Not somebody like
That is
yeah.
very real.
Yeah.
No, but I'm so proud of you. Like, so that's amazing that you have the opportunity to basically shine bright. Like, we know you can, and we know you already do. Okay, so now we're getting to the end of the episode. We've learned all about your background, your recruiting strategy from last year, going into like, entrepreneurship over the summertime, then getting your full-time offer, and now you're going to Tata Consulting. Yeah. So what advice do you have for any prospective student that's interested, of course, in Ross, and that's interested in entrepreneurship, and that doesn't really know where they kind of lie in, like, should I even go to business school in the first place, based on my background? Like, I'm not like the realistic or like the typical B school candidate, like, is this for me?
Yeah. So from a macro perspective, there is no such thing as a typical B school student anymore. So my favorite thing about Ross is that there's so many incredibly interesting and multifaceted people who come here who have very different and like short-term and long-term reasons for going to business school. So if you, as an applicant, are looking at schools and only see like the brand, that is, in my opinion, not the best way to choose a school.
Yeah.
It's the Marie Kondo aspect of figuring out what's right for you. Is, does it spark joy?
Yeah.
Every time I talk to somebody from Ross, that sparked joy. When I talked to people at Berkeley, which was the only other school I was like remotely thinking of, I wasn't enthusiastic.
Yeah.
But at doing research on Ross, talking to people about Ross, I was like, okay, like I can do this.
Yeah.
Next is like do like a lot of self-examination. In the applications I've helped edit, I'm like really harsh. And I'm like, okay, but like, why do I care?
Yeah.
Why do I care?
Yeah.
What does this say about you?
Yeah.
And use the application process as a way to really flush out what makes you, not just special, but like what drives you.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of my drive comes from learning an immense amount about things that I wouldn't go out of my way to learn so I can do better work in the future. And for me, better work is community oriented.
Yeah.
For other people, that may not be it. And that's perfectly fine. But having a strong like mission statement or purpose is so key to having good application materials and then getting into the school of your choice.
Absolutely.
And again, if it doesn't spark joy, it doesn't spark joy. Don't waste your money and your time applying.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So on the entrepreneurship side.
Oh, yeah, same thing. Don't just start something to start something, because then you're going to end up with a subpar product or service. I think like taking into account what do people outside of your experience want or need. So I think like having yourself tested and not putting the cart before the horse. Like, don't sink a bunch of money into something if it's not going to work well across different markets.
Right.
And don't just create something because you think it's cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think creating something is great. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have been like, no, manufacturing more stuff is not good for the earth. Why would I do this? And like, I have a lot of objections to the way capitalism is used to trick people into spending money they may not have. So starting this was like a real adventure in recognizing my own values and detangling that discomfort into something that was actually important to people. So entrepreneurship is not easy, nor should it be easy. And being honest with what you want out of it is important too. Like, I'm not in it to make all this money or to like be the next big name. I'm in it to start being a part of the narrative that shows that choice is important.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sheela.
Thank you, Sabaina.
For like all of your time, for chatting with us today. And again, this is Sabaina Kamara, interviewing Sheela Lal. We're MBA students at Michigan Ross, and we are graduating this year. Well, this year, oh my gosh, 2019.
5 months.
Yeah. Don't remind me. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking a listen. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. You'll have our information in the biographies that should be listed below this episode. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Touch MBA podcast. Don't be shy. We have a mailing list. Go to touchmba.com and get yourself signed up. And we'll keep you posted with the best tips and insider interviews on how to get into your #1 school. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Touch MBA. See you soon.